schools. Really excited to report that we had a great first day of school on Thursday. I had a chance to visit at least 13 to 14 schools and saw so much joy across the system. And we're just as excited to welcome back our youngest learners on Monday. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Miriam Ortiz, who's going to be facilitating our meeting this morning. We're also offering interpretation this morning. And so Miriam, may I ask you to please introduce our interpretation feature? Thank you.
This is Miriam speaking. Good morning. The interpretation feature has been turned on. We are offering interpretation in the following languages: Spanish, Haitian Creole, which can be found in the Korean channel, Cabo Verdean, Arabic, Vietnamese, Cantonese, Mandarin, Somali, Portuguese, French, and ASL. Please note that everyone needs to join a channel, including English speakers. If you want to listen to the conversation in English, please join the English channel by clicking on the globe icon at the bottom of your screen. Today's meeting format is a webinar, and we are also streaming live via the BPS YouTube page. But please note the YouTube option does not allow access to interpretation channels. Given the large number of attendees, we encourage participants to use the Q&A feature or the raise hand feature for the public portion of today's update, which will be after the presentation. The chat box will be open, and we will frequently post resources in that space, including who to contact for questions specific to your own child or family. Finally, this meeting is being recorded to make available for those who cannot be here today. At this time, I'd like to turn the meeting back over to Acting Superintendent Drew Ackleson for formal welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you for your leadership and your support of this really important event. I again want to warmly welcome everyone who's joined us here this morning, especially the hundreds of families who've all taken time out of your busy schedules to be with us as we get ready to welcome our youngest learners in just 2 days. Before we dive into our agenda for this morning, at this time, I'd like to welcome our extraordinary Boston Public School Committee Chair, Jerry Robinson. Please welcome Chair Robinson.
Thank you, Drew. I'm delighted to join you as we prepare for an exciting new school year. We have many important updates to share with you today, so I'll keep my comments brief. I want to thank all of the staff who've been working hard over the summer to prepare for a strong start to the school year. Special thanks to you, Acting Superintendent Eggleston, and incoming Superintendent Skipper, who have been working collaboratively for months to put BPS in a position of strength for the upcoming school year and beyond. I also want to thank all of the students, parents, and caregivers for joining us today. We know the partnership between school and home is critical to our students' success. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be part of this important conversation. I look forward to working together to make this year a great one for all of our students. At this time, I have the pleasure of introducing our incoming Superintendent, Mary Skipper. Mary will officially be joining us on September 26th, but as noted, we have been in contact daily to ensure a strong school opening. Mary, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Robinson, and welcome and good morning to our BPS community. We're excited to share with you all of the work that our BPS team has been doing to prepare for a successful year, and especially a successful year ahead. I'm so appreciative of Superintendent Ackleson and the whole team who have worked days and nights to ensure a strong start to the school year, and it has been that. As a team, our focus is on supporting the whole child and ensuring equitable academic outcomes and opportunities for every one of our students. And to bring that vision to reality, there's several areas that together with our school leaders and communities we'll focus on in this coming year and the years to come. First and foremost, we'll be prioritizing and accelerating academic performance. We know from the pandemic that students returned last year and this year missing critical literacy and numeracy skills. So through our Equitable Literacy Initiative, we'll work hard to close those gaps and accelerate learning for every student in every classroom, in every school. In order to really make academics our priority, there are several other priorities that need to happen to support. We need to strengthen our social emotional learning. In order to support and prioritize accelerating academics, we'll continue to rebuild critical social emotional learning skills that our students need to be successful. Helping students to work on relationship building, on self-management, on social and self-awareness. These will continue to be the part of the fabric in each of our classrooms in the coming year. We also have to streamline and ensure student safety. Students need to feel safe physically and emotionally. Building school and classroom culture that's inclusive, fosters trust with other students and adults, and going to a school and in classrooms that are clean, safe learning environments, all of this will help ensure that our students can focus on learning and that our staff can focus on teaching. The next two priorities have to do with you. They really are, committing to creating an authentic dialogue and space for our families to be heard and empowered. So events like this will become more familiar. Each of you is critical to your child's success, and we need you as real partners in this work if we are to support each of our students and for them to be successful. We also have to commit to improving internal and external communications with our families and with our staff. To be an effective partner, we must be good communicators, and we need to commit to a level of transparency that builds trust with each of you. We'll be working continually to communicate regularly and in every way possible to ensure that access to information is not a barrier. And finally, you'll be hearing a lot about the word accountability. Increasing accountability for both our central offices and for our schools. We have to commit to a new sense of accountability, both in the way we work and in the way we communicate. We're going to hold ourselves to the highest standards of continuous improvement, and we're going to work every day to do better for every one of our students. These priorities are our commitments to you, and the team and I appreciate and thank you for trusting BPS with the most precious thing that you have. That's your children. I know you're eager to hear more about the start of school and how we're getting to all of this work and how we're going to realize this vision. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our acting superintendent, Drew Eccleston.
Thank you, Superintendent Skipper. This is Drew Eccleston speaking. I wanted to also acknowledge for members in the audience that we have our most senior level leaders from BPS here, including deputy superintendents, regional school superintendents, operational leaders, as well as school leaders at the schoolhouse. And they all stand ready to answer questions in the Q&A function, either at questions that are related to school and or the system. And so we look forward to talking to all of you about these things and answering all of your questions as we move forward this meeting. Despite facing significant hiring issues across the country, BPS has been very successful in our staffing efforts with few exceptions. Our focus on hiring, preparation of our buildings, getting our students safely to school, and ensuring the health and safety of our students has been our top priority all summer and have helped us to open fairly strong. Today, we want to provide space for you to ask questions, and the main topics we will cover are largely focused on transportation and COVID-19 health and safety protocols, as we know that for many families, both of these issues are likely top of mind. We are so excited to welcome our students for the 2022-2023 school year. It was a good start, certainly had some hiccups and some areas that we need to improve, but we're really excited about the foundation that we've set for this school year. As you all know, grades 1 to 12 returned on Thursday, September 8th, and our youngest learners in pre-kindergarten and kindergarten will start this Monday on September 12th. The entire district has been hard at work. While not perfect, we had a very successful first 2 days, and we are eager to build on that to welcome many more students on Monday. Please join me today in welcoming 3 extraordinary leaders from the BPS. Deputy Superintendent of Operations, Sam DePina, Senior Deputy Superintendent of Academics, Dr. Linda Chen, and our Executive Director of Health Services, Dr. Jenny Lobo-Lopes. The first question many families may have before the first day of school is, how is my student going to get to school in a timely and safe manner? We wanted to be clear that there are many ways our students can get to school. Some will bike, some will walk, some will drive, and some will take a school bus or use MBTA public transportation. Whatever mode of transformation families and students choose, we know this year, because of the Orange Line shutdown, that families have concerns about delays or possible confusion over routes. We're here to help, and I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Sam DePina, who will share more details about our transportation efforts. Please welcome Sam.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Arkelson. Good morning to all families that are here joining us this morning. I especially want to thank and welcome our pre-K to K scholars that'll be starting on Monday. So I'm looking forward to everyone joining us and having a great first day of school. We know how critical transportation is to many of you. Over the past 2 days, we've shown great improvements in our internal transportation department, and we'll continue to improve and make investments in areas that'll make your experience a more pleasurable one, given all the constraints of the Orange Line and the service interruptions we've had in the past. We continue to work closely with TransDev, our transportation provider, to support and hire more drivers and help alleviate some of the strain from the Orange Line shutdown. We've been successful in hiring more drivers this school year because of these efforts. We've worked with our union partners to hire an outside vendor to support students we transport outside of the district. This means that more of our yellow buses will remain in service students within Boston boundaries and support with routes where needed. We have a new contract with the drivers union that's provided several operational efficiencies to our systems and structures. And drivers received their bus routes earlier this year with the ability to drive them and plan and practice their routes before they start services. We continue to hire bus monitors. However, this has been an area of challenge for us. We do have contingency plans underway where we fall short of bus monitors. We have prioritized bus monitors for our students with individual education plans. We are working with schools and recruiting staff to have them serve as bus monitors. And we're also working with our city partners to offer incentives to attract more applicants. Many of our students also use public transportation to get to school. We know the impact of the Orange Line shutdown has caused concerns with how students will get to school. We're working with the MBTA, the city, and many partners to support students as they travel to and from school. On our next slide, we'll go into some of the details on that. We also want to remind everyone that if you have any questions or concerns about your students' transportation, you can reach out to our multilingual transportation hotline at 617-635-9520. You may not know, but 23,000 of our students ride the MBTA every day, and 5,000 students specifically travel on the Orange Line. And we put in plan many actions to support and aid students and families during those commuting times. For the first few days of school, the City of Boston and BPS staff have been assigned to dedicated MBTA train stations as ambassadors to direct students and families and answer questions they may have. Personally, I was at Jackson Square over the last few days, and I witnessed firsthand how supportive it's been. So you'll look for folks that are in yellow vests, and we'll be there providing a lot of information as you need it. We encourage families and staff, regardless of whether they rely on the Orange Line or the MBTA, to plan for extra time during your travel and commute. If you're starting school this week, you can also plan your route using the MBTA's Trip Planner tool. That link can be found at www.mbta.com/trip planner, which our team will also add in the chat. The Orange Line shuttle buses are more charter style buses and clearly state Orange Line shuttle on them. BPS has also dedicated our own shuttle bus routes to some of our schools to help mitigate the impact of the shutdown. We know the shutdown will cause some delays, especially as people figure out their new routes and timing. As a result, students will not be penalized for being late to school due to the closure, and will also keep cafeterias open and allow plenty of time for students to arrive and have a good, healthy breakfast before they start the day. We'll continue to update families with any new developments via email, robocall, and text messages. You can always call us at 617-635-9520 or use our online transportation portal ticketing system. The team will put that link in the chat as well. Next slide. This summer, our facilities and operations team has been busy at work getting our buildings ready for a safe, clean return to school. This summer, our schools have undergone a deep cleaning. The cleaning includes disinfecting all high-touch areas, bathrooms, floor and carpet, and prepping hand sanitizer stations to make sure they're filled and ready to be used. We've also continued to make both short and long-term progress on a number of district-wide upgrades to our facilities. To date, we've installed nearly 1,000 air conditioning units over the summer, and the work will continue through spring of 2023, and we're on pace to complete the work around that time. But as a reminder, due to our old infrastructure, in many cases, we have to do electrical upgrades prior to installing the customized air conditioning units into the windows. We also continue to upgrade our water systems across the district to ensure schools have clean water. Each school has either completed the work of the new filtered bottled water refill stations or has water delivered until they receive the updated system. We've also continued a number of upgrades in our facilities plans. We encourage you to get involved in our planning for the future of our buildings by joining us at one of our design meetings for what we want the future of BPS to look like. In the meantime, we've continued to make countless interior and exterior repairs and replacement at our schools that you'll see as you arrive. From fresh paint to repairing doors and windows, plumbing, alarms in our HVAC systems, ceiling tiles, fences, roof, and walkways. We're happy to say that our buildings are ready for our staff and students for the year. Now, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Jenny Lobo-Lopes, to give you an update on our COVID mitigation measures. Jenny?
Thank you, Sam. Good morning. I'm Jenny Lobo-Lopes, Senior Director of Health Services, and I'm here to address our health and safety protocols. I'm happy to be here. We know the pandemic remains a concern for all of us. We've been vigilant with a cross-functional team that meets 3 days a week to ensure we are on track with all of our COVID-19 responses. The team includes the Boston Public Health Commission, and our multi-pronged strategy includes distribution of at-home tests and symptomatic testing, vaccines and boosters, masking and PPE, air quality and ventilation. Hopefully, all of you received our COVID-19 protocols letter that was shared with families this week. All details of our plan are outlined there and are also added here in the chat. But I want to highlight the following details for you. Testing. Staff and students will have access to one test kit every 2 weeks. Each kit contains 2 tests for weekly testing. Students are encouraged to test Sunday morning or Monday morning before returning to school. Symptomatic testing for students will be available by the school nurse for consented students and staff. Consent forms will be sent via permission click in the coming days. Parents and guardians are required to report a positive test result to their student's school. Vaccine clinics. We know vaccines are effective in combating COVID-19. And we encourage families to continue to vaccinate, including booster shots. In partnership with Boston Public Health Commission, we are in the process of setting up vaccine clinics at our schools and other community events, including next Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at White Stadium, where we will have free giveaways, food, and games. Please bring the whole family and get vaccinated. Masking and PPE. Schools are stocked with masks and other PPE. Masks are optional, but highly recommended, with the exception of some specific situations in which they are required. For example, after a student has a known exposure, but is negative, they must mask. As we follow the data, we will adjust our mask policies accordingly. Please visit our COVID-19 webpage for more details on the BPS website on our masking policy. Air quality and ventilation. Air purifiers and air quality sensors are installed in every classroom, nurse's office, and main office to continuously measure indoor air quality. These sensors report information in real time so that both building staff and the BPS environmental team can monitor air quality and immediately respond to any issues. Next slide, please. Sorry, next slide, please. Thank you. Back one more. Thank you. Positive case notification to families. If a positive case is identified from an in-school symptomatic testing, notification will be sent to the classroom or the cohort impacted. While families are responsible for notifying us if their child has COVID, we will only be sending positive case notification from tests performed in school. We cannot verify results from the community. Notifications will also be sent to classrooms or cohorts when clusters of 3 or more cases are reported. Students may continue to attend school as long as they remain asymptomatic, meaning without symptoms, and are required to mask in school for 10 days. Families must call the school if their child tests positive for COVID. Isolation and exposure. So last year, we spoke a lot about isolation and quarantine. This year, the language has changed to isolation and exposure. Isolation guidance is for individuals who are COVID positive. Exposure protocols are for individuals who have been exposed to someone who has COVID, but they themselves are negative. For isolation, the guidance is students and staff who have tested positive for COVID-19 should isolate at home for at least 5 days. Parents and guardians must notify the school if their child tests positive for COVID-19. If after 5 or more days of isolation, symptoms have resolved and the student or staff member has tested negative, they may return to school and must mask for the remaining days until day 11 following their positive test. If a student is exposed, students and staff who have been exposed to COVID-19, regardless of vaccination status, are no longer required to quarantine at home unless COVID-like symptoms are present. Instead, students or staff with a suspected COVID-19 exposure may return to school but are required to wear a mask for 10 school days following the exposure. So all in all, as we have in past years, we will rely on our strategies developed in cooperation with the Boston Public Health Commission to keep our students and staff safe and remain flexible to make any changes needed based on the latest data and recommendation from the Boston Public Health Commission. We know this is a lot of information and want to again assure you that all of this is covered in a family letter that was sent home last week in our 9 translated languages and is available on our website, along with lots of other useful information about COVID-related matters and back to school in general. And now I will pass the mic back over to my colleague, Dr. Chen, for our final slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. I want to again warmly welcome all of you, our new and returning families. We know that you have options and we are grateful that you have chosen BPS. And we look forward to partnering with you and all of you in the year ahead. My name is Linda Chen, and I am Senior Deputy Superintendent of Academics. I am very excited about the opportunity and privilege of working in BPS and serving our families and students. On behalf of BPS, I hope your family has been able to experience the joy of this season through one or more opportunities. Schools have been celebrating their students and staff with welcoming emails, letters, and other events. Our Countdown to Kindergarten program hosted 30 neighborhood events, as well as the citywide celebration on August 30th at the Children's Museum, where we welcomed hundreds of new kindergarten families. It was such a joy to see all of our students and families from across the city at this event. Cradles to Crayons has donated thousands of backpacks to our schools for families who may need a bit more support getting ready for school. The Family Engagement Team has hosted 2 sessions on how families can partner with schools on their children's learning and play key roles in shared decision-making. And the Boston Teachers Union will be hosting a back-to-school fair on Saturday, September 24th at Carson Beach. As I close, I want to remind families of our new BPS helpline. This is in addition to our transportation hotline. You can reach them with questions at 617-635-8873 or send them an email, helpline@bostonpublicschools.org. In fact, both lines are open today to support our families. They will be open until 3 p.m. this afternoon. With that, let me turn facilitation back to Miriam Ortiz and the community engagement team to facilitate the public comment section of our time together. Miriam?
This is Miriam speaking. Thank you, Dr. Chen. We certainly have some great questions that have come via the Q&A feature, and I also see some raised hands. We have 255 people on the webinar with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. So we will begin with our public comment portion. We will take as many questions as time allows, and we ask that participants follow these norms of engagement. Please be open to new and differing ideas or opinions, respectful of each other's voices, and focus with comments specific to the BPS reopening. If you have individual questions specific to your student, we encourage you to reach out to the BPS helpline or the transportation hotline for direct support, which you heard are both open until 3 p.m. today. We will continue to place those resources again in the chat so you know where to call. So to participate, please either add your question to the Q&A feature for a direct response, or use the raise hand feature, which is also found at the bottom of your screen. At the bottom of your screen, you will click the reaction icon, then you'll hit the raise hand option. Please be sure your name is correctly displayed. In order to hear from as many voices as possible, questions are limited to 1 minute. When you speak, please state your name and your affiliation. We would also ask that participants only speak once until all who wish to speak have had the opportunity to do so. Again, we will take as many speakers as time allows. This session will end at 11:30 a.m. And before we actually begin, I want us to just pause for a few seconds. We have, as you know, interpretation available, and our interpreters have been hard at interpreting for our presenters thus far. So I would like to take just a few seconds of a pause to give them an opportunity to take a breather, maybe a little sip of water, and I will begin calling on the hands in just a few seconds. Thank you so much. Thank you to our interpreters. We will begin with James Ricardo. You can unmute and ask your question. James Ricardo, are you with us? No? Okay. We will go with Maria Sanchez. You can unmute, Maria. No? Okay. Let's go with Mahira. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Mahira or Mahira. You can unmute.
Miriam, someone is saying that they cannot unmute themselves in the webinar. How do they unmute?
I see that Mahira is unmuted now.
Okay.
Mahira, are you with us?
Is there an instruction though that they should look for? Because it seems like several people are confused.
Mahira, are you with us?
Yes,
Okay, we can hear you.
yes.
Welcome. You have a question?
Je
Wanna
n'ai
ask
pas
your
de
question?
question.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Je n'ai pas de question.
Yeah, we have an interpreter that can help you. You can ask your question. Oh, thank you for that. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go with Miguelina. You can unmute, Miguelina, if you have a question. I know sometimes
Hola.
the hands get raised
Hola.
accidentally. Hola, Miguelina.
Mi nombre, sí, soy Giselle Ramírez. Yo acabo de llegar al país y tengo un niño discapacitado, tiene autismo.
Ujú.
Entonces yo quiero saber cuál es el procedimiento que ustedes aplican y qué tan rápido es para que mi niño no vaya a sufrir alguna consecuencia. Usted sabe, o sea,
Ujú.
me explico. Los niños que tienen alguna discapacidad pueden ser torpes, dentro de los rasgos de ellos que son torpes, ¿me
Ujú.
entiende? Entonces,
Sí,
saber qué tanto
déjeme, déjeme traducir y le consigo quien le pueda contestar esa pregunta.
correcto.
Go ahead, Leslie.
Sí, mi nombre es Giselle Miguelina Ramírez.
Thank you, Leslie. And who from the team could answer the question? Mom is trying to find out how quickly they just arrived to the country, how quickly can they receive services for their child?
I'm wondering if Lauren is still on the call.
I am on the call. So I didn't hear the whole question, unfortunately, but if you could.
The mother, so they arrived recently to the country and she has a child with special needs. She wants to know if and how quickly she can enroll and start receiving services for her child.
Yeah, she should enroll immediately through the Welcome Center, and she can definitely attend school and get an assessment plan. And we will work very diligently. We have 45 days to do the whole process. And if you want to reach out directly to me and my staff or the assistant director in charge of your school, I can make that happen. And we will work with you very carefully to get this in process.
Thank you, Lauren. I see
Miriam.
Faye turned on her camera. Go ahead, Faye.
Good morning, buenos dias. I just want to also make sure that mom knows that her child will have access to specialized instruction to help her student learn English, as well as receive support for the student's disability.
Thank you so much, both of you. Espero que esa información les sea útil, así que vaya al Centro de Padres Welcome Center tan pronto pueda. Let's go with Sarah Horsley. Sarah, you should be able to unmute now.
Thank you. I think some of my questions have been answered already in the Q&A. I'm trying to see what my last question was. Hold on just a second. Yeah, I did ask a question about one, BTU event, having a vaccine clinic there. And I just wanted to hear more about what the BPS and the city's plans are in terms of vaccine clinics. At my school, the JFK Elementary, we have a pediatrician at Children's who's a parent who's helped us hold, I believe, 3 vaccine clinics. And we found the most success in terms of people, families coming and getting students vaccinated was when we had it in partnership or at a really fun event that was like already happening. It was, I believe, if I remember right, our literacy night, where we have like books and, just all sorts of fun stuff. So I wanted to find out if the district and or the city were planning similar things. Obviously, unfortunately, we already missed some of the back to school events, but what the plan is, in general for vaccine clinics specifically held at schools. Thanks.
Miriam, I can start on the answer to that question, then we'll turn it over to Dr. Lobo-Lopes or someone else who might have additional detail. So one, we agree with you that we should be identifying large events, particularly outside events, where we know there's a lot of activity and a lot of community building to ensure that our families and our community have access to vaccination and booster clinics as well for both COVID and the flu. We've been partnering very closely with Dr. Ojukwu at the Boston Public Health Commission to identify those opportunities. We certainly have been targeting communities where the vaccination rates are lower than others to make sure from an equity perspective, we're putting our resources where we note that there's a lower level of vaccination. As it relates to the specific event that you asked about, the literacy event hosted by the Boston Teachers Union, I'm not sure if there is a planned vaccination clinic and booster clinic at that event, but I will be speaking to Dr. Ojikutu about that and making sure that to the maximum extent possible, which I don't see any reason why we couldn't, that we will have resources there at that specific event.
Thank you so much, Drew. I want to direct our attention to the chat for a second, and a specific question that I saw from Christensen that I think has some interest from other attendees. And so if Dr. Lobo-Lopes and her team could answer, if a student has symptoms consistent with COVID-19, but tests negative for COVID-19, is this student directed to remain away from school until symptoms resolve or directed to remain in school? Is the answer different for at school testing and at home or at doctor's office testing? Ask for clarification because you said only at school testing can be verified.
Thank you. So we ask that anyone who has symptoms or feels ill stays home. That's actually a key point, and I wasn't able to address it in the actual presentation, but we are also approaching flu season. So, it can be multiple things. And we understand that if a child is ill, actually the best thing to do is not just rely on the COVID test being negative, is to seek guidance from the pediatrician or primary caregiver, as we understand it can be anything else outside of COVID. So we want our parents to know that and to feel safe and understand that it's not just COVID. We have other things to be concerned about as well. And so we want to make sure that the community understands, even though your child tests negative, still has symptoms, they should not be in school. So I hope that answers the question. We want your child to feel well and healthy in order to learn. And so, and if you have any further questions, you can also reach out to health services for like specific COVID questions in real time. So I hope that answers the question, Mary. I'm happy to answer for, go on further if needed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will continue to monitor the Q&A. I want to thank our colleagues and our team who have been answering. I want to remind our participants today that the BPS helpline and the transportation hotline has workers today from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. who can answer the phones if you have a particular issue. So I see the hand of Jifang, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but you can unmute.
Yes.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Oh, sorry, I don't know, the meeting is for the machine, or because is a public school, do you have I send the question on the chat, is for the kid, just ask the after school the program, do you in the public school, can you send me the linking and anything, the website for me?
You're looking for information about after school programs?
Yes.
Okay. Is there someone on the team who can direct Jifang to how to best access information about that?
Yeah, you just send me the link and the WeChat.
I don't know if Ms. Snyder is available to direct.
Denise, could you answer the question about after school programs?
Certainly, I think there's a couple of combinations here. One is that it's really important to connect with your school about what their options are. Most schools are in charge of their own programming and what they offer and are able to offer based on their community's needs. So the first start is to check in with your school about those opportunities. If they do not offer something on site, they usually have working relationships with community partners for programs that happen in the community nearby. That might be a YMCA, that might be a Boys and Girls Club, that may come in the form of many other partners. But the first place to start is with your school, because most of our schools manage their programs internally and in-house.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder. I see Ahmed from the OMID team also said the parent can reach out to at EL Parent Team. Thank you, Ahmed, for that. So let's go with Sonal Patel. You should be able to unmute now.
Hi. So I just, again, I put my question in the chat. I know I'm encouraging my child to wear a mask still, but, you know, knowing that that is not the rule anymore, I just want to make sure that BPS is taking steps to make sure kids that are choosing to do that are not discouraged or picked on.
Thanks, Sonia. I'll take that question. Staff of the school have been instructed to regularly remind all staff and occupants in the building that wearing a mask is a personal choice, and we support whatever personal choices people make. And in the event that there is any type of bullying or harassment going on, we'll make sure we utilize our restorative justice practice in our code of conduct to make sure we follow up with students that are impacted by any of the misbehavior. So we'll continue to monitor that, and we'll continue to remind, send messages out to students and families that wearing a mask is an individual choice.
Thank you for that. And thank you, Tanya, for that message of encouragement from your daughter. She's sharing being safe is never bad. So thank you for that reminder. So let's go with Aura Berciano. You can unmute.
Sí, buenos días, ¿me escucha?
¿Cómo no? Bienvenida.
Sí, mire, yo estoy muy contenta de empezar un nuevo año, que las nuevas expectativas, pues, me siento muy feliz, pero también al mismo tiempo también tengo el sabor agridulce que los 2 primeros días de escuela mi hijo no puede atender a la escuela porque el transporte, el bus que le asignaron no tiene chofer. Él es un niño especial y es muy difícil explicarle por qué el bus no llega. Pues usted sabe las frustraciones para uno. Yo vivo muy lejos de la escuela y no tengo auto para conducirlo. Y es muy difícil la situación económica para pagar un taxi para que lo esté llevando y recogiendo. Gracias, solamente.
Muchas gracias, Aura. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if anyone from the team
Miriam,
can share
could
some
you,
words. Yeah.
just in case Dell didn't hear the question, I just actually just moved over to the English channel, so I missed the translation, but or interpretation. Could you just
Yeah.
repeat the question? Then Dell
Sure.
prepared to answer.
Miss Aura was sharing her excitement for the start of the year and the bittersweet moment also of like her child who has special needs not being able to go to school the first 2 days because there was no bus, for him. And it's difficult for her to afford a cab every day to take him to school. So she's excited for him to start the school year, and at the same time disappointed that her son cannot still get to school. Lauren, I think your camera is on.
Yes, I am so sorry that happened too. And I know Dell and I are working very closely on this. In the interim, if we are willing and able to reimburse the family, so please reach out to the Office of Special Education. We'll reimburse you for any transportation costs in the interim until we can provide it. And I will put the special education the email in the chat there for you.
Lauren, could
Thank
you also
you.
provide your direct email too for the parent to reach out? I want to make sure that that is prioritized. I see
Absolutely,
Dell, so
absolutely. I'll do both.
Dell, I see you with your camera on, but I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I was having an issue unmuting.
Okay.
I will share my direct email in the chat if I can connect with the family to investigate the reason why a bus did not pick up. And I will follow up with the family directly if the family can share a phone number where I can call this weekend, hopefully, so that we can have transportation in place, hopefully by Monday.
Appreciate that, Ms. Stanislao. So ahora, si pueden mirar en el chat, van a escribirle una dirección electrónica para que usted le envíe su número y ellos se van a comunicar con usted directamente. Gracias por estar con nosotros. So I see, so now you have your hand up again. I don't see any other hands, so you can go ahead and unmute.
I was just wondering, does BPS have an overall plan of really enabling all the schools from a technology perspective? We know technology is prevalent, yet it seems with ESSER funds that are out there, every school is making a decision, but not every public school, based on when it was built, definitely has challenges with connectivity. And I have not as of yet seen a plan to say that, hey, BPS has a plan, let's say within the next 2 years, 3 years, right, to revolutionize all, because that is really the core of success for this next generation. And I don't see that in place.
Thank you for your question. I see Mark has turned on his camera. Go ahead, Mark.
Good morning. I'd love to speak with you a little bit more about some of your concerns about connectivity. I will say in the last 5 years, we've made sure that all of our classroom spaces have wireless access and that all of our students have a one-to-one device. And this year we're rolling out a new program to also provide devices at home for families who do not have a device at home. I will say there are always challenges that might come up. Sometimes we might have a new classroom that opens up in a new space, or maybe some challenges with making sure that every single square inch has wireless. But we do have the resources and plan in place to make sure that that is addressed. And so if you do have some concerns, or if your child's school has issues with connectivity, they can reach out directly to me and I'll put my information in the chat for you as well.
Great. Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Could I just also add to that question, to the sort of, I think both short and long-term things that Mark mentioned. Many of you probably know that the mayor has made a $2 billion investment, at least at this moment in time, potentially more over time, in new facilities across the Boston Public Schools, dubbed the Green New Deal. Through this investment, obviously, technology and connectivity will be a really important part of not only the new builds across the city, there are many that are already in the works, as well as the renovations and mergers and renos that are sort of planned in the weeks, months, and years to come as part of that planning. And so part of this process for each one of these sort of new projects is to start with the education plan. What is it that we want to achieve educationally? And part of that has to be a really strong technology and connectivity plan. And so just want to make sure that everyone understands that we're taking efforts right now to respond with some of the facilities constraints that we have, and is also part of the larger term planning that we're investing in as part of our partnership with the city.
Great. Thanks, Drew. And the reason that I really brought that up is because my son attends one of the exam schools, and I feel like the fact that he's attending an exam school, it definitely does not meet the level of technology that should be there for an exam school that's STEM related specifically.
Yeah, we hear you. We know we have more work to do, and I'll certainly speak with the folks at the O'Brien too.
I also just want to add in that, as we define technology and STEM, I think we want to look more broadly. What we know about technology is it's well beyond just a computer and connection. And so I think for all of our schools, as we, particularly our high schools, as we look to Mass Core, as we look to career pathways, we're going to want to look at all kinds of relevance when it comes to technology. So thanks for the question. I think it's a really good one. And I think it's one that, we're very fortunate to have Mark Racine as CIO for the district. This is one that we'll work together with the secondary office, in particular at the high school level, to be able to expand our definition of what technology and technology skills looks like. Some of our innovative pathways right now are actually very much focused on different types of technology, whether that be programming, whether that be engineering, whether that be design, graphic. There's all kinds of interpretations of it. So appreciate the question, and we'll want to, I think, look at technology more broadly than just connectivity and a computer.
I can also speak to, now that I know that is the O'Brien that you're referring to, some of the challenges we've heard from the school around cell phone reception within the building, which we know is important, and it sometimes can be a safety concern. So one of the things we are working on is working with the local cell phone providers like T-Mobile and Verizon to make sure that they have plenty of antennas around the area, but also we've been able to connect our network so that if a cell phone is on our network, they can make phone calls in an area where they may not have normal cell reception. So that is definitely something I'm very attuned to and working directly with the O'Brien on.
Perfect. Yeah, and the reason I really brought that up was I was one of those parents that was very adamant on not using the BPS provided Chromebook, just because if you look at the resolution of what's provided, I mean, that's such low resolution. And, for me, my child's eyesight is critical because they are spending hours on in front of the computer. So I went out last year and I bought him a Chromebook that was 4K. And, we're still trying to get it connected this year. But as a parent, I was adamant that that was important for me to protect his eyes versus looking at something that's so low resolution. So I think these are definitely things we should be thinking about.
Thank you so much, Sanal. I'm going to go with the next hand up to give opportunity to others, but thank you for bringing up such an important issue. And I'm glad that we got information out about it and share with you some of the plans that we have. We have Jennifer with her hand up or their hand up. You can unmute.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
So my daughter attends a public charter school in Boston, and along the lines of technology, she states that there's a computer in each classroom, which is fine, but they are not allowed to take computers home. She's fortunate that I was able to purchase her laptop from her other school when she graduated from an elementary school. But what happens to those students that don't have resources? And I had to also sign a slip saying that if it's damaged or if they had to replace it, I had to pay for it. But if she's not taking it home, why am I responsible for damages? where the students or the teachers are there to monitor, usage. Thank you.
I can address that question. So to the first part of your question about if a school is keeping their Chromebooks in the building, what about the students at home? I'm really excited that this fall, and actually as we speak, we're rolling out an additional 20,000 Chromebooks to our schools to provide as a long-term lending library for students who do not have a Chromebook at home. This was provided through a federal grant, and thanks to the city of Boston, who's rolling out this across both Boston Public Schools as well as the Boston Public Library. So if students don't have a Chromebook at home, they can borrow one from their school. If adults don't have one at home, you can borrow one from the Boston Public Library. These devices are all being rolled out now to our school, so they may take a little bit of time to get out, but as I said, they are all being delivered to our schools as we speak. To your point around paying for damages, the Boston Public Schools does not have a policy of charging families for lost or broken devices. So if you want to reach out to me, I'll put my contact information in the chat, and we can talk directly about what that message may be, and I can work with the school to make sure that that message is clarified.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Jennifer, for your question. I don't see any additional hands up, but we still have some time for this meeting. So I want to give our colleagues an opportunity to either reaffirm anything or lift up again anything that you have been answering on the chat. I want to appreciate that we've had many questions already answered on the chat. I'm not sure if Drew or Ms. Skipper or anyone from the team would like to reiterate anything before.
I'll start and then pass it off to Superintendent Skipper and Dr. DePino, Dr. Chen, anyone else who wants to say anything. I just want to acknowledge that there are always two truths as it relates to the BPS, right? That there are things that we need to do better. We recognize that, and I can just assure this community that we were working tirelessly over the summer to ensure that our first day was better than last year's first day. And I think in many ways we succeeded. Nevertheless, we recognize that there are real challenges that we need to continue to work through, and we're only going to do that by partnering with our communities. There are also, at the same time that we have these challenges, there are also great things that happen across our system. In our classrooms, I've seen magical work in classrooms already in my time visiting schools over the last few days, in our schoolhouses, and in our central office, in our support of schools. And so I just want the community to recognize that we understand that we have to reckon with both of these sort of stories, that on the one hand, there's significant strength. There's very few communities across the Commonwealth where you can go and have a meeting on Saturday morning, have this level of interpretation and support, and getting this number of senior level leaders on a call to answer questions. And we recognize that we have some systemic work to do. We're committed to doing that work with our community, to rolling up our sleeves, and to make sure that we deliver on a promise of an excellent and equitable education across BPS for every student in every classroom in every school across BPS. So I'll turn it over to Superintendent Skipper, who probably will want to say a few words and maybe pass it off to some of our colleagues.
Thank you, Drew. I also recognize that we have a few more parents that have raised hands, so I'll turn it back to Miriam in a moment. I just to echo, you have our commitment. We are not perfect. We are going to strive to be better at each step. That is the commitment that you have from us. Every single one of the leaders that are on this call and those that are not, that are back at Central or in our schools are working for you. We're here to serve you. And that is really going to be our mentality going forward. And it's about continuous improvement. I personally love this because it's the opportunity to dialogue with 250 parents of all different kinds of questions. I think for us, we also learn from the questions. We also receive some really valuable suggestions as part of the chat. And so those will be ones that we can take back with the team, particularly around COVID protocol, facility protocol. So please spread the word. We would love to make these events a regularity as opposed to, just for the beginning of school. We also want to encourage our school and our school leaders to have these type of events, to open the dialogue with our parents in our communities. There's no question that, is a silly question. Every question, and if you're asking it, 5 other people have that same question or more. So we appreciate you taking the time on a Saturday morning to do this. And we will, continue to make plans for these types of events so that we keep this dialogue open and we learn from you as partners in the work. With that, I'll turn it back to Miriam to continue to answer questions.
Thank you, Superintendent Skipper. So let's go with Tanya Nixon. You should be able to unmute.
Am I on? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Tanya Nixon Silberg. I have a daughter at the Mendel. I'm going through the chat, and it seems like it's kind of a little bit of the same thing. We're kind of all over the place when we think about COVID policies. The framing around mask being optional or encouraged and not required or mandatory is really off-putting for us folks that want to keep everyone safe, right? My child's teacher's not wearing the mask, right? And there are like 3 other kids in her classroom that are doing it. So when I hear that, and then I hear that coupled with the idea that, I thought I heard in the beginning of this meeting that folks would, if they took a test at home, that's not reliable, so we can't judge that. But if they take it at school, then we can judge that. If there's an outbreak of 3 or more, maybe we'll let people know. I really need like consistency, right? So when Superintendent Skipper talked about learning from the chat, I think even us learning from the 2 or 3 years that we have been in COVID, right? This time of the year is flu season, everybody's in each other's faces, the windows are going to be closed. This is the time where we're like, masks on, and then we see, right? We have to take a proactive approach to this. I think the education is going to get where it needs to get, but we need our kids to be safe, right? And if we're not doing that, then what are we doing? So I kind of need to hear, like that question from Christiansen was in the beginning, and I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, but that question, only half of it was answered, right? And so I need full answers. And so it makes me nervous to send my child to school who said, wow, everybody should be wearing a mask, we're keeping each other safe. That's the messaging. That's the messaging that we want for BPS students to have across the board. Even the thought of a kid being bullied for wearing a mask never crossed my mind. And my daughter was like, what? Why would that even be a thing? And then I realized we live in this society that says that if you make a personal choice, then we're going to honor that. But there's something around us wearing this mask and us being a community that actually brings BPS's values forward. And so like this wait and see approach is crazy. It's crazy.
Tanya,
you gotta let me go.
I just wanted you to know that you have supporters on the chat promoting you to BPS COVID coordinator. I'm just saying, I saw that from someone. So
I do a lot of things in BPS. What I don't want to do is have you all to be shouting from the rooftops to wear a mask when we've had 3 years of data that supports that masks are important to stop the spread of COVID. So I will just say that like a really concise, straight line of defense and offense to COVID. We're like holding back for some reason. I'm angry and also just like really frustrated. And I know I'm a part of BPS. So I know that there are, like, I grew up in BPS. So I know that there are good things about BPS. I know that. But when the first thing is, we're going to make masks optional, it's just, it doesn't bring into that, that thought that I have for my child in her school.
Absolutely. I wonder if either Dr. DePina or Dr. Lobo-Lopes can lift up again, perhaps like, or elaborate a little bit in the collaboration with the Boston Public Health Commissions and the guidance that we receive as a district with regards to like, you know, setting the timelines and the protocols. And so I don't know if either one of them want to speak on this.
I can start and turn over to Dr. Lobo-Lopes. One of the things we do, and as many of y'all know, the guidance that we receive from both the CDC, the Health Commission, and or DESE for that matter, changes depending on the kind of state we're in with COVID and COVID spread. What we've learned over the last few years is that the guidance is going to change, and we want to make sure that we do at absolute minimum what we feel is best and appropriate for the students based on the guidance and the data we receive. So we continue to be in constant contact with the Health Commission and constantly reviewing data. We have weekly and daily, we have daily meeting schedules to review all cases at schools. And we have weekly broader conversations with different levels of folks within the organizations at both sides. So we'll continue to monitor that. We'll continue to make the adjustments and changes, but based on the data we see currently, we felt this is the best approach we can take at the time. What we also learned during the last few years is that there are going to be spikes and ebbs and flows of COVID. There will be surges. There will be times when there's a low, and we position ourselves as a district to make sure that we can fluctuate between the times when there's a low and when we need to ramp up our mitigation measures. So we do have and establish those protocols in place and are ready to do so as we've done over the past couple of years. I don't know if you want to add anything else, Dr. Lobo-Lopes, but that's my general.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. I think you explained that part, that right now we're at low rates in the city. But I just want to clarify something as far as communication, because I was typing in the chat. When nurses at the school level are going to conduct symptomatic testing, because we no longer have pool testing, we are sending home the at-home test kits. We will have two types of results, right? Anything coming from the outside community and our symptomatic testing in school. If a child tests positive from a symptomatic test in school, you will receive a notification because it'll be classroom-based. We were doing that last year, sending classroom-based notifications for any positive cases. On the other end, when we say at-home tests can't be verified, is that people actually have to report. When someone reports to the school, that report is created. We have a COVID reporting form, and then that is shared with us internally, and we review those cases with Boston Public Health Commission. Now, when we talk about 3 cases, that is a metric that we put in place last school year to monitor the situation per classroom or cohort. And what I mean by that is, say there's a basketball team. If we're identifying positive cases, and we work with coaches, we work with the athletic department and our nurses, if we're identifying positive cases at any given time, whether it was a play or, again, a basketball game, we monitor those cases, not just when we hit to 3, but we're monitoring daily. We're looking at the schools, we're looking at the home rooms. These are things that we learned from last school year. So we put a number to it as 3 very early on, so that way we can act on different things before it becomes an outbreak. And that has worked very much effectively in the last school year. Mask optional and highly recommended. You have a choice to send your child to school with a mask. We have masks at school to provide for your child as well. We have made it very clear that bullying and making someone feel uncomfortable because they wear a mask won't be tolerated at any school. And so I do want to clarify those things. We will send out communication to you. And when we say 3 cases or more, that's if we have concerns of a cluster. But if there's a symptomatic individual in the school who tests positive, you will receive notification. And so I know it's unsettling sometimes, all the changes, but we are happy to work with our families. We can review our protocols. We review with Boston Public Health Commission and work together to make sure that the schools are safe and that your child is safe. So I'll continue to answer questions in the chat, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for answering those questions. There are some other questions that are in the chat that are asking for more information. The person that was there before asked about the metrics that are going to be used, and the fact that COVID positive cases are rising now at the beginning of the school year. Is it can you all give us a number? Because this, we'll let you know, does not build trust, right? So what is the number? I heard 3 around whether or not there's an outbreak, but if wastewater, because I think that's the most really robust, wonderful thing to look at. If wastewater got to this level, then we're going to recommend masking, right? Is there a number that you all can put out for something like that? And I would just really just look at the chat because they're asking really wonderful questions.
Yes, so to answer that, yes, we monitor wastewater numbers with Boston Public Health Commission and community numbers. If we reach medium levels of concern, high levels of concern, based on our conversations with Boston Public Health Commission and other entities, then we will require masks. That is already something that's in place. And so I understand your question on specific numbers, but even from last year, it was hard to put a number to it. But when we are at medium risk or high risk, well, medium risk first, right? We don't want to get to high risk before we act. But this is why we're monitoring not only the COVID levels in the community, the COVID numbers within the school, but also wastewater numbers, so that we have these discussions early on and decide what next steps are. I know it sounds like it's reactive, but it's not reactive. We have plans in place. We understand through COVID, everything that we had to do to adjust quickly, especially during the surge. So we have learned from that, and we do have surge protocols in place. And so I know it doesn't feel good to hear. We don't have a specific number, but I think what we learned from COVID is that things change and shift quickly, and we are ready to change and shift quickly as well. So I do want to say that, and I don't know if that's assuring, because I know COVID is scary and it hasn't been a good time, but we work all the time. And so we're monitoring this with BPHC on a daily basis. And that's something that we learned as well last school year. Not only did we meet with BPHC, we met with DESE. And so I think that there's a lot that has changed. Community levels are low at the moment, and we know that. And we will change as things shift. We will shift as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lobos. I just want to do a quick time check because we are approaching 11:30. And unfortunately, we only have our interpreters until that time. So we will come to a close after our next speaker. So I'll take one more hand, and I know our colleagues are still very active on the chat answering questions. So thank you for that. Barbara Cowley, you will be our last speaker today.
I just wanted to confirm, if there are 3 or more cases, you are going to recommend that children wear masks. Is that correct?
Correct. So when we have 3 or more cases in a classroom, first we speak with our nurses, we speak with our school leaders, obviously BPHC, we discuss those cases in those classrooms, identify where those cases are coming from, whether it's at home, in school, when they were last in school, very specific questions. Once we know that there are 3 cases in that classroom, and again, we monitor case by case before it becomes 3. We have a separate reporting form for our nurses. If they have any concerns of 3 cases, and this is something, again, that we've developed to what we've learned. If they have 3 cases in a classroom, they're reporting daily anyways, but once we hit that 3, there are key measures that we put in place. Our team sends out an email for cleaning, disinfecting, and then yes, we will require masks for those classrooms once they hit 3 cases.
And I'm assuming I have a grandchild that I would keep her home, frankly, if there were more than 3 cases in a classroom. Is that something that people are doing as well?
I mean, so what we saw last year as well, especially towards like the middle end to the end of school year, is that when we hit 3, once we put our measures in place, it wasn't spreading, right? And so I'm not going to say keep your child at home, because we know that we have measures in place to keep your child in school. And so if there are more concerns, again, we review. If we have a 4th case or a 5th case, we're reviewing those cases. If we have a concern for a classroom, we have a different conversation at that time on what needs to be done for that classroom. But our goal is to keep kids in school. We have strategies in place to do that. I'm very confident in that because we have gone through some tough times. And when I tell you health services and the team, COVID team didn't sleep, we didn't sleep because we wanted to make sure that your children are safe. And we're happy to do that again. I do want to say that cluster, I know it's scary, but the 3 is a helpful number because at 3, we know that we can slow that down. So, and that's been proven, that's what we've done. And so I know it's never the answers we want to hear, because we want to hear that there's nothing that's going to happen to our children. I have a 6-year-old myself, he's in 1st grade now. And I send him to school with a mask. Mask has been optional for them before it was for BPS. We kept our masks on for a lot longer last year as we were watching. And when it was time, we removed the mask as well. So masks have been optional since last school year before the summer. Summer went well for us as we monitored the cases of COVID. So our work doesn't end. It's not going to end now. And again, any feedback, concerns, we are always willing to meet with individuals on that level. And so I hope that answers your question, but we monitor daily.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lopes. And so before I pass to Acting Superintendent Drew for closing remarks, I do want to lift up Altagracia wrote a question, comment in the chat in Spanish, and she said, "Good morning. My name is Altagracia. I have 2 children, one in 11th grade and one in 9th. My older has an IEP. I want to make sure that as they move to a new school, that they will continue to receive services from his IEP. The one in 9th grade has a 504 plan." Lauren, do you want to answer?
Yes, absolutely. I sent her actually a private chat to reach out to me via email. But absolutely, the services will continue between schools. And I will help connect her with the right people at her new schools if she reaches out to me.
Thank you so much, Lauren. And so with that, Drew, go ahead.
Also add to that question too. I just want to make sure that parent and every parent on this understands that you always have a right to convene a team meeting. So should you be interested as your child transitions to a new school and you want to have a conversation with the school at the team level, please exercise your rights to request a team meeting to ensure that the accommodations and services that are agreed to in the IEP or that are required as if your child is a multilingual learner, that those things are in place.
And I see Faye put her camera on, so go ahead, Faye.
Just to echo what Dr. Eccleston just shared, want to make sure that Altagracia and all parents of multilingual learners who are receiving ESL services understand that it is their right and our responsibility as a district to provide that instruction no matter what school that they choose or enroll in.
Thank you. So that is all the time we have for speakers for today. So Drew, please take it away for closing.
Yeah. Thank you, Miriam, and thank you to the Office of Family and Community Advancement. There's a ton of behind the scenes work to ensure all this works effectively. I want to thank you all for this dialogue. I want to particularly thank the families who raised really important questions relative to COVID-19 protocols. We certainly will take these questions and pieces of feedback into account as we're sort of moving forward. I do want to assure families that every day at 4 o'clock, the Boston Public Schools team and the Boston Public Health Commission are meeting. We're reviewing data. We've developed some pretty, I think, impressive systems and structures to to help us get down to the sort of even the classroom level of what's happening across BPS. We'll continue to do that and make policy decisions that are consistent with the data and also in the best interest of our children and families. And if we need to pivot to make more aggressive protocols in place, we are prepared to do that, irrespective of politics, but most importantly, prioritizing the data and the needs of our students and families. Thank you all so much for your commitment to BPS. I believe it was a strong start to school. We recognize that we have some hiccups and some things to improve. We're excited about Monday. And of course, as all things go with curveballs, we'll be also hosting the President of the United States here in Boston on Monday. So there could be some transportation delays, particularly in the afternoon as the event goes from 2 to 4. But know that we're really committed to working with our city partners to ensure that we stay on track relative to transportation and that we deliver on a promise of an excellent and equitable education. We're going to roll up our sleeves to do that work, and we look forward to doing that with all of you. Thank you.